In this city, every day someone dies in the most horrific way. Every resident lives with the knowledge that tomorrow they might become the next victim of fate.
People die at the fair.
People die at the fair.
The beginning of the film takes us to Arizona in 1882. It was a tough time, food was scarce, sickness spread quickly, and every day was a struggle for survival. Only the brave and audacious could stand firm in such times. In a small town, all the residents have gathered, eagerly awaiting some entertainment. One of the duelists has already arrived, and everyone is waiting for the second. The second participant runs out from around the corner but stumbles and falls. However, he quickly gets up and faces his opponent. The man demands that Stark draw his revolver and duel, but the young man is nervous and tries to settle the conflict through conversation. He offers to sell a few of his sheep and cover the damage since his sheep had eaten from someone else's pasture. The man agrees but gives him 2 days to sort it out, or he'll kill him. Later, sitting by the lake with his girlfriend, the young man shares his concerns about the duel. But Louise interrupts him, saying their relationship is over. Despite being together for a year, she needs something different. If she were older, she wouldn't doubt it. However, people are living into their 30s now, and she has time and wants to focus on herself. Albert is adamant about not accepting her decision, but Louise leaves anyway. In the town's saloon, men and women are entertained. One man sits on a stool with a few tulips, waiting for his girlfriend to finish work. A worker asks Edward if he's okay with his girlfriend being with 15 clients a day for money. He replies that it's fine, as he has a tough job too. At that moment, Ruth walks out of the room. She sees Eddie and joyfully runs to him. After a hug, they leave the establishment, but halfway there, a worker calls out to remind Ruth that she has another client that evening. Meanwhile, Albert returns home to his farm. As he approaches his house, he sees one of his sheep on the roof. That evening, Eddie and Ruth come to visit Albert, having learned about Louise. Albert shows them photos of his beloved, which are very beautiful, and he is upset that one can't smile in pictures. He loves his girlfriend deeply and doesn't understand what he did wrong. He was ready to do anything for her. To distract himself, he invites his friends to go out for a drink. They sit in the saloon, and Albert tries to convince his friends that they're living in the worst place at the worst time. Everything here wants to kill them. Alcohol, criminals, mean whores, hungry beasts, diseases, big and small injuries, Indians, the weather. Even going to the outhouse is dangerous because rattlesnakes crawl around it. But even if you manage to avoid all that, you'll definitely be done in by the doctor. The pastor himself killed 2 people, one in a duel and the other, his son, to prevent him from seeking revenge when he grew up. He admitted this in one of his sermons. Albert then points to 3 men, miners from a silver mine. They're eating ribs in fiery sauce because they can't taste anything else anymore. Such a diet leads to constipation, cramps, dyspepsia, kidney and liver failure, hemorrhoids, and intestinal inflammation. These people can die from a single fart. At that moment, one of the men stands up, farts, and collapses dead. But if that's not enough for his friends, they can always leave through the door. Stepping outside, Albert points to a body lying a short distance away. It's their measure. The body has been there for 3 days, and no one has bothered to remove it, investigate the death, or replace him. Right after his speech, wolves come up to the body and drag it away. Returning to the table, Albert finishes his rant about the horrible, filthy American West. However, his audience doesn't appreciate his words and literally throws him out the window. Sitting on the saloon steps, Ruth tries to clean a wound, but Albert won't let her. Seeing his state, she suggests he talk to Louise. Albert, thinking it's a great idea, drunkenly heads over to her place. When he knocks on the door, Louise opens it. Seeing how drunk he is, she has no intention of talking to him. She shoves him away and closes the door right in his face. In the desert, an old man rides a wagon with his dog, Plugger. He talks to the dog and twirls a piece of gold in his hand. Suddenly, riders appear ahead. Hiding the gold, he stops the wagon. The travelers ask if he knows how to get to Sherman's Creek. He gladly agrees to help, but as he's about to leave, the leader of the group stops him, suspecting he has gold. Initially, the old man denies it but eventually decides to hand over what he has. However, Clinch, the leader, insists on a duel. The elderly man reluctantly agrees. The outlaw starts counting and, on the count of 2, shoots the old man dead. The girl riding with Clinch is outraged, not understanding why he had to kill him when the man would have given everything anyway. Clinch grabs her by the throat and tells her never to argue with him in front of his men. A wife must respect her husband. Reviewing the map, Clinch decides that Lewis and Anna will head to the town of Old Stump, and they will catch up with them in about 2 weeks. Mounting their horses, the group rides off in different directions. But before they leave, Anna notices the dog and decides to take it with her. Meanwhile, Albert gets out of bed at 3 in the afternoon. Heading to the outhouse, he opens the door and runs into Eddie. His friend is worried that Albert has been cooped up at home all day. Albert explains that's not the case. For example, he went to see Charlie Blanche on Tuesday and settled all his debts. But Eddie isn't just talking about that. He knows Albert is having a hard time but also points out that Albert hasn't sheared sheep for 2 weeks. Albert retorts that it's easy for Eddie to say, since every day he comes home to a girlfriend who loves him, and they're having a good time together. However, Eddie interrupts him, saying he and Ruth haven't been intimate yet. They're both religious and want to save themselves for marriage. Albert is taken aback and starts to feel that maybe his situation isn't so bad after all. When they head into town, Eddie and Albert are walking down the street when they spot Louise hugging and kissing her new beau. Distraught over his ex, Albert is snapped out of it by Eddie, who points out that ice has been delivered. They move closer to watch it being unloaded into the shed. Suddenly, one of the ropes snaps, and a huge block of ice crushes one of the workers' heads. The friends decide to go to church. The pastor gives his sermon, mentioning the worker who died during the ice unloading and promises that the townsfolk will remember him every time they enjoy a cold drink. At the end of the service, he introduces the new residents, Louis Barnes and his sister Anna, who have just moved to town and plan to build a farm. Louise visits her boyfriend Foy's store. With the fair coming up, she suggests they go and buy her a new dress. At that moment, Albert walks in. Foy asks why he's there, since the store only sells beard grooming products and Albert has no beard. Albert says he wants to grow one. Then he accuses Foy of stealing his girl, but Foy insists she left on her own. He's just a poor sheep herder and can't offer her anything. In the evening, Anna and Louis go to the saloon, where Eddie and Ruth also arrive. Eddie declares his love for Ruth, saying they've been together for a long time and thinks it's time they spend the night together. Ruth disagrees, saying they're Christians and that God wouldn't approve of their premarital relations. During their conversation, Albert approaches them, saying he's had enough and is planning to leave for San Francisco. Meanwhile, Louis is drinking at the bar when another patron bumps into him, leading to a conflict. Without hesitation, the bandit shoots Louis, and a massive brawl breaks out in the bar. Albert and Eddie step aside and comically fake a fight with their fists. At one point, Albert sees that people are about to fall on Anna and rushes to her aid. He pushes her outside, saving her from harm. The guy and the girl introduce themselves to each other. Anna shares her plans about the farm, while Albert talks about Louise. Suddenly, they notice a rattlesnake. Staying perfectly still and communicating only with their lips, the girl suggests going to the fair together to make Louise jealous. On the day of the fair, Albert and Anna both arrive. Anna is eager to have her photo taken, as she has never done it before. They find a photographer and join the line. As they watch others being photographed, Anna mentions a person who smiled in their photo, but the guy doesn't believe her, and she also thinks it might be a tall tale. Suddenly, the flash explodes along with the photographer, and the fire spreads to those being photographed, killing them. Albert laments that this happens every year. Someone always dies at the fair. As they move on, they run into Louise and Foy. A verbal spat ensues between the couples, and Anna suggests they go to the shooting gallery. Foy immediately agrees. Foy takes the first shot, skillfully hitting all the targets of runaway slaves. Albert goes next but misses completely and loses 6 cents. Seeing this, Anna proposes a bet. If she hits all the targets instead of Albert, Foy will give her $1. The onlookers hold their breath, as no one has ever seen $1 in person. Foy agrees. Anna takes a pistol in each hand, requests the targets to move at maximum speed, and accurately hits every single one. Angrily, Foy hands over the money, seizing the chance to mock Albert. Overcome with frustration, Albert challenges Foy to a duel the next day. Anna intervenes, suggesting they postpone it, perhaps for a week. Everyone agrees. As soon as the couple leaves, Albert realizes what he has done. He admits to Anna that he doesn't know how to shoot, but she promises to teach him. The next day, the friends head into the desert. The girl asks Albert what he found in Louise, saying she seemed mean and self-centered. Albert describes Louise as a wonderful person, funny, kind, and smart, and a good sheep herder, even though he thinks otherwise. After their conversation, Anna begins to train Albert. However, he struggles and cannot hit the target even at close range. By the end of the week, he finally starts to grasp the basics of shooting. In the prison, the sheriff brings dinner to Louis. Pretending to be asleep, Louis attacks and kills the sheriff as soon as he sets the food down. Meanwhile, Albert and Anna arrive at the dance. Anna is dressed in a beautiful gown, but it turns out that's not appropriate attire here. Albert worries it might be his last evening, but Anna reassures him and asks him to trust her. They are spotted by Foy and Louise. Foy goes to the singer and requests a song. Everyone starts dancing, but Albert is pushed off the dance floor. Anna suggests grabbing a bottle of whiskey and leaving, which Albert agrees to. She takes the bottle and 2 glasses, puts something in one of the glasses, and approaches Foy and Louise. She pours whiskey into the glasses and proposes a drinking game. Foy quickly downs his glass. Satisfied, Anna tells Louise exactly what she thinks of her before returning to Albert. They head to the farm, where they drink and talk. Albert thanks Anna for believing in him and introduces her to the sheep Bridget, who has a small gift for Anna on her back. Unwrapping it, she finds a photo of Albert smiling. Overjoyed, she kisses Albert. Embarrassed, Anna decides it's time to go home, and Albert walks her to the door. They kiss again right before the door, but this time Louis is watching. On his way home, Albert notices a barn glowing with an odd blue light. Peering inside, he sees a strange old man, Emmett Brown, repairing an unfamiliar device, a DeLorean. Not understanding what he's seen, Albert continues on his way. Foy and Louise are in bed. Louise begs Foy to call off the duel, but he refuses and orders her to get to work. She starts to stimulate him with her mouth while Foy masturbates and fantasizes. The process is interrupted by Foy's upset stomach, and he rushes to the toilet. In the morning, Anna gets ready to support Albert at the duel. There's a knock at the door, and when she opens it, she finds Clinch standing there. Meanwhile, all the townspeople gather on the main street. Albert stands in the middle, waiting for his opponent. After some time, Foy appears, but he looks very ill and is barely able to walk. Reaching the spot, he can't hold it any longer, grabs a hat from a spectator, and loudly defecates into it. After emptying his bowels, he returns to the center of the street. However, Albert has no intention of shooting him anymore. He no longer claims Louise and turns to Anna, telling her she is dear to him. But love is a mutual process. If she's better off with Foy, then so be it. After the duel, Albert goes to Anna's hotel room, but she's not there. He heads to the saloon and tells Eddie and Ruth that Anna is missing. At that moment, Clinch enters the bar, looking for the man who kissed his wife Anna that night. He questions a patron, shoots him, and announces that the culprit has until noon the next day to show up on the main road. With that, Clinch and his gang leave the saloon, taking Anna with them. Clinch gives orders to his henchmen while he stays with his wife. He forcefully tries to get Anna to confess who her lover was. She only admits after he threatens to kill her dog. Once he learns it was Albert Stark, he kisses his wife. However, Anna won't stand for it. So, quietly picking up a stone, she hits her husband on the head. Meanwhile, Albert is packing his things. He sees Anna riding up to the house through the window. She tells him he needs to leave immediately because Clinch knows it was him she was with. Albert is furious that Anna kept her husband's identity a secret, but she explains she didn't want to scare him away and that she likes him a lot. She also mentions that she got married at 9 and didn't want to be an old maid at 15. During their argument, Clinch and his gang arrive at the house. Albert tells Anna to leave through the back and follow the path into the mountains. Before leaving, Anna warns him that her husband shoots on the count of 2. Upon arriving at the farm, Clinch orders his men to find Albert. They search the house and barn but find nothing. At that moment, Albert is hiding among his flock of sheep. Waiting until the gang is distracted, he sneaks out, mounts a horse, and takes off. Clinch fires several shots at him but misses. The entire gang gives chase. At one point, they almost catch Albert, but he manages to slip past a train. Once the train clears the way, Clinch sees that Albert and his horse have jumped into one of the cars. However, he's confident Albert will return. After disembarking from the train, Albert continues through the desert. He dismounts and prepares to camp. But before he can even start a fire, a stone hits him in the head, knocking him out. In town, Ruth decides to have sex with Eddie. Considering Clinch Leatherwood is in town and they might all die tomorrow, she figures the Lord might forgive them. Eddie is thrilled as it's his first night. However, their romantic night is interrupted by a knock on the door. Opening it, they find Anna on the doorstep, saying her husband is looking for her. Ruth peeks out the window and sees Clinch at the bottom of the stairs. Coming up, Anna returns to bed with Eddie, and just then, their door nearly bursts open. On the threshold are Louis and the girl, who pleads with them not to kill them on their first night together. Anna is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, Anna, having escaped through the window, jumps down and lands directly in Clinch's arms. Meanwhile, Albert is coming to his senses, surrounded by Native Americans and tied to a stake. They're preparing to burn him. However, the guy knows their language and begs them not to kill him. Shocked, they stop the execution. After freeing him, they invite him to the fire and listen to his story. Albert isn't sure what to do next, and the chief suggests he drink a special potion. At first, Albert refuses because drugs don't affect him well and he starts to hallucinate. But the chief promises it will be fine. Summoning his courage, Albert drinks the potion in one gulp, only to discover that the dose was meant for the entire tribe. Albert drifts into a drug-induced hallucination. He recalls his early life, discovering there was no tooth fairy, and a fake Abraham Lincoln at his graduation. He remembers trying to impress Louise by taming wild horses, only to be chased by a group of dwarves. While fleeing, he ends up in a magical meadow. There, Anna tells Louise that she's blind despite having eyes all over her face. Louise turns around and Albert sees her enormous eyes. Terrified, he starts screaming, but is called by a mysterious voice. Turning around, he sees sheep with mustaches and hats singing and dancing. Suddenly, a door falls from the sky behind him, and a voice announces that they are the guardians of the future. If he's ready, he should enter the door. Gathering his wits, Albert opens the door and finds Anna in a wedding dress. But as he steps through, the vision vanishes. Instead, a large predatory bird with Clinch's face appears and attacks him. After defeating the bird, Albert comes to his senses. The chief immediately says that in the vision, Albert fought and defeated a black condor. This means he possesses true courage. He just needs to believe in his bravery to find his happiness. In the morning, the entire tribe sees Albert off. He thanks them for their help, but the chief replies that his people have a saying: sometimes all you need for happiness is group consumption of a magical potion. Clinch, holding Anna captive, waits for Albert on the main road. And, of course, Albert arrives. The townspeople secretly watch their encounter. Ordering his men to take Anna away, the outlaw accuses Albert of being involved with his wife. Albert denies it and proposes settling the matter with a duel. Clinch, laughing, agrees. They both draw their revolvers. The leader starts counting down, but Albert, remembering that Clinch fires on two, shoots first on one. He wounds Clinch in the shoulder. Clinch retaliates by shooting Albert's gun out of his hand. Realizing his end is near, Albert asks to say his last words. He asks for Anna's release, saying she is innocent, and that he was the one who kissed her. He also wants to perform an Islamic funeral song. At that moment, Clinch starts feeling ill. Albert reveals he poisoned the bullet with rattlesnake venom. He knew his shooting wasn't great, but if he could catch Clinch off guard, it would work. Over the week, he learned the basics of shooting from Anna and obtained the poison with the help of the Native Americans. But his speech is cut short by Ruth. She announces that Clinch is dead and probably didn't hear how Albert outsmarted him. Anna immediately breaks free from her husband's henchmen and rushes to Albert. Embracing her, they share a kiss. Albert apologizes for having to kill her husband, but she laughs and says it's no big deal. They wouldn't have worked out anyway. At that moment, Louise approaches Albert. She invites him over in the evening, but he says there's no need. He wants to focus on himself. Embracing Anna, they move away from the crowd. On the way, the girl mentions that a reward is likely to be offered for Clinch, and wonders where he would spend it. But Albert hasn't thought about it yet. Albert and Anna, on their farm, surrounded by thousands of sheep, embrace and share a kiss. At the fair, a carnival worker is calling out to visitors to shoot at runaway slaves. A dark-skinned man approaches him, pulls out his revolver, and shoots the man. With the words "damn the fair," he hides his weapon. How well do you think the film succeeds in parodying Wild West stereotypes? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.